Later on, she tries to explain that those comments, how they sound in her original language of Okanagan, in that reality which is created by that language, which is so different from the reality created by Indo-European languages. And she gives an example of the Okanagan word for insane. The 4 syllables in the world, and she says the Okanagan word for insane is a good example of what she's talking about. The 4 syllables in the word, which are used to form the meaning, are each many descriptions of an active reality. When put together, they form the whole picture, which then becomes an action image describing in a state of talking inside the head. Doubling the description in the act of talking forms a mini picture of opposing voices, rather than simply many voices. The meaning of the word relies on further connection for coherence in context. It requires a larger active picture. The meaning can then be quite specific. So, and she described this piece as talking inside the head. So think of that as being the state of the condition of the insanity of Western mind. That they're opposing, it is split. That's why when you go into English and away from Lakota, as we were saying yesterday, you immediately start fighting. Because the splitness is central and inherent into the language, into the mind which the language creates, into the language which created the mind. Then she goes on to translate. If I were to interpret or transliterate the Okanagan meaning of my grandmother's words, it might be this. The ones below who are not of us as place may be a chaotic threat in action. They are all self-absorbed, arguing inside each of their heads. My father's words might be something like this. Their actions have a source. They have displacement panic. They have been pulled apart from themselves as family in a generational sense, and place as land, us, survival. I think the words displacement panic are the best way to describe the madness of the Western mind, to which all of us in Euro-American culture are heirs. But I don't want to stop there because I want to leave us all with some hope. There are other traditions in Western culture that go back as far as these words do. They are the hidden traditions. The words esoteric mean hidden. They have been kept out of sight to keep them safe, every bit as much as your ancestors kept your spiritual traditions out of sight to keep them safe. They're called many things. In the Greek culture, they were known as the Orphic Mysteries. They've been called the perennial philosophy. I trained as a psychologist in the psychology of Carl Jung. Carl Jung understood them and brought them into his psychology. So there are people in Western culture who are in touch with those traditions, which in many ways are the same traditions, where the same ideas about being a human and living on the earth and being a part of every piece of the universe. Those are the same traditions. One of these traditions, which I've studied, is given the name astrology. And just as, it has been denigrated, belittled, made a joke of, but I don't understand it that way. I understand it as a language of moving sacred energies. And when you understand astrology, you understand that everything is always moving. And that there is no separation between, it's as above, so below. As without, so within. There are no separations, there are no disconnections. The pieces of the mother are put back together again. And I will say one more thing, which is, white people are waking up. What you do is so incredibly important. Not for you, of course, it is important. It's about survival. But none of us will survive. The dominant culture will not survive unless the things you know continue to be spoken loudly over and over again as many times as possible.